Let's start with the big news from overnight, which is Stargate. For those that did not read up or hear the breaking news, this is a landmark joint venture between OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank. $100 billion to start to invest in U.S. infrastructure to build AI. $500 billion over time. Tell us what is like the initial real benefit that we're going to see from this.
I mean, the number one thing we see, so yeah, like you were saying, Sam Altman, our CEO, Larry Ellison, Massa, and Trump announced in the Roosevelt Room this new company called Stargate, the intention to put $500 billion towards AI infrastructure in the U.S., with $100 billion already committed over the next 4 years. At the end of it, it comes down to the fact that everything that we see is that more compute leads to better models. Better models enable us to build better products, solve more problems for people around the world, and we're going really deep. So we're going to invest in that. We want to sort of take matters into our own hands, make sure that we have enough infrastructure, enough compute to do what we know we can do with the models as they get better. And so that's what this is about.
So first data centers, is that like sort of the first step that you think this will go towards?
It's data centers that house GPUs, that will both train models and run inference that support our products. I mean, literally everything that we see is that the more compute we apply, the better our models get, and we don't see that tailing off. And so we want to make sure that we have enough compute to do what we think is going to be necessary to build products for everybody around the world over the next 10 years.
Do you expect to build chips with this in the U.S.?
Well, I mean, NVIDIA is a technology partner. Microsoft is a technology partner. So
OpenAI, though? There's been some discussion of chip building at some point.
And we'll see.
Yeah. All right, so I want to get into some real fun stuff, some product stuff. I'm going to ask it, but I feel like I know the answer already. How many people in the room use ChatGPT?
Amazing.
How many people use ChatGPT already this morning? How many people are using it right now? Great. So you're head of product, so I thought we could go through some products that you have either announced or we have heard about, and you can tell me exactly when they're coming out.
Okay, cool. That's what we're going to do here, right?
That's what we're going to do here. Yeah, you're going to say.
My goal was to come here, break a bunch of news.
That is what we do here at the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
So, look, I want you give me sort of a sense.
There's one thing I know: engineers on the team love it when the PMs give dates. So.
This is going to motivate your team. Think of this as a motivation for your team back at home.
Okay, cool.
So, look, it's going to be a fun game.
You're really helping me out here.
It's going to be a fun game, at least for me. It's going to be really fun. And for all of you, not for you. Okay, GPT-03.
Yeah, we're super excited about this model. So maybe I'll step back if you're okay, and make sure people understand what these models are. So there are a bunch of trends that we see in the space right now. Models are getting way cheaper, right? You compare GPT-3 when we announced it 2 years ago to GPT-4o mini, 100x difference in costs. So GPT-3 was 100x more expensive. We've seen prices fall by 99% over 2 years. At the same time, models are getting way smarter, and I'll talk about that in a sec with O3. They're getting faster and they're getting safer. So you have and this is why we and Massa and many others think it's worth putting something like $500 billion towards this. You have an incredible set of trends that I don't know that you see anywhere else. 99% drops in cost at the same time as these things are getting faster and way smarter and safer. I mean, it's just, I don't know where you have that anywhere else in the world. So you all are probably familiar with GPT-4. You're probably using that, sort of by default in ChatGPT. At the end of last year, we had a research breakthrough that we announced. And we put that in a model called O1. So it's actually a totally different naming scheme. And in part, that's because the model can do something that GPT-4 can't do. It can reason. And so, GPT-4 is amazing. It knows a lot of stuff. You can ask it a question, you get a quick answer. It's kind of like System 1 thinking. The O series of models, O1 and its successors, actually reason. So, think if I asked you a hard question, if I asked you to do a crossword puzzle, you don't just start giving out the answers, right? You're going to look at it and you're like, okay, that first one, I think I have a few ideas for what that could be, but I don't exactly know. Okay, now I know that there's an A in the third letter. Well, then it must be this. You're like building hypotheses, testing those hypotheses. Sometimes you refute them. Sometimes you can, confirm them. and then you build on top of that, and off you go. And that's how you solve any hard problem. It's also how you solve, like, booking a flight. It's how scientific research gets done. And so these models for the first time can do that. And they also, at the same time, it's not just their ability to reason, they also are much smarter than GPT-4. By any reasoning benchmark, they're just off the charts. And so we announced that, and then O3 is sort of the next version. We're skipping a number because of our friends at Telefonica who have a network called O2.
See, I thought that, I was thinking about that. I was like, oh, it's probably 'cause it's just such a massive leap. You know?
Yeah. That's what we should say.
That's what you should say.
That's what
but
we should
now
say.
we're really gotten to
See,
the
you're
bottom
helping
of
me out
it.
again.
I'm here for you.
So anyways, O3. So the other thing that's actually that's really interesting that's happening is, and that also gives us this optimism, is it took us, I think, 18 months to go from GPT-3 to GPT-4, and that's relatively fast. You probably don't remember how, like, if we went back to GPT-3 today, after you're used to GPT-4, you'd be like, ugh. I mean, at the time it was mind-blowing, and like we whooshed past the Turing test, and everyone, I remember I was like, I can't believe I live in this world where these things exist. But now you'd go back to GPT-3 and it would be like, ugh, I'm not going to use that. So that took 18 months. We have gone from O1 to O3 in about 3 months. So the iteration cycle is compressing, and we're already training the model that comes after O3. It looks like we're going to see another big jump in capabilities. So the reason we're super excited about this is the models are getting really smart really quickly. I'll say one last thing.
And then you're going to tell me when.
And then, of course, I'll give you the hour that we're going to launch.
Okay, great.
So when we launched the preview of O1, one of the ways that we benchmark these models, especially in coding, is by having them effectively enter competitive coding contests. And it's a good benchmark because you can kind of do these things asynchronously, so you can enter them as if they were a human and they get scored in the same way that any human would. And the first version of these models was like the millionth best coder or something like that, which it's not bad. You're still top 2 or 3% in the world. But the second version, when we actually announced, or when we launched the sort of full first version of this new model, O1, it was like the 1,000th best engineer in the world, a software engineer at these competitive coding problems. O3 will be the 175th best engineer in the world. And that's, again, we're talking like 3, 4, 5 months between these things. You've gone from a millionth to 175th. And so you can imagine where it goes in the future as we continue to see meaningful steps up. So that's why we're so excited about these models. We launch 2 versions of these things. There's sort of a mini version that retains a lot of its core competencies around things like math and software engineering, but doesn't keep all of its world knowledge. But it's very fast and very cheap to inference as well. And then we have the sort of full model that is, that kind of brings it all together. So we'll launch the O3 mini version very soon, and we'll follow up with O3. I would expect, we said sort of February, March if everything goes right. So that's what we're shooting for.
All right.
That was a long answer, but like I think the context is helpful.
And we're going to get into a lot of what you just talked about, which is really helpful, and I think actually even sets the stage for the next product I'm going to ask you about, which is agents.
Amazing.
When?
I think 2025 is the year that agents become real, and that we go from, today if you use ChatGPT, you're using it mostly to answer questions, right? You ask it something, gives you an answer. You ask it something, gives you an answer. In 2025, ChatGPT is going to start doing things for you in the real world. As I think about my own day and the way that I spend my time, or even like the way that I spend my time in a browser, say, like just start with the digital world. Maybe half of the things that I'm doing in a browser, like are actually things that I'm interested in. I'm reading a Wall Street Journal article, of course, by Joanna.
You're half interested in that?
No, I said I am. Half the time I'm interested. Yeah. That was an example of something I was interested in.
Yes.
So I'm reading something. I'm watching a YouTube video or whatever. Like I'm actually interested in what I'm doing in the browser. The other half, I'm like filling out my kids' soccer forms or something, and it takes 30 minutes out of my day, and I really wish I had that 30 minutes back. Why can't AI do that for me? So these are the kinds of things that ChatGPT is going to be able to do for you. We've been working not just on the reasoning stuff that was just talking about, but also on what we call multimodality, making ChatGPT not just understand text when you type, but to be able to interact in all the ways that we interact as humans. So it can speak to you, you can speak to it, and it can understand you in, by the way, in like 50 to 100 languages. It can also see, so you can point your phone and it can understand what's going on. It can look at your screen in a browser and understand what's happening in your browser the same way that you and I do. It's not parsing HTML. It's actually just looking at the visual elements on the screen and understanding what they mean. That's a search box. If I click on this, this is what's going to happen, etc. And so, like, once you have those primitives, you can start to build these things, and it's just like we're solving problems for people. We're giving you back time that otherwise would have gone to stuff that like isn't super fulfilling, and so you get to spend more time doing stuff that matters.
So just like to back up, I'm imagining a tool, and I'm going to imagine it, and you tell me if this is what you're building. It sees what's on my computer screen. I tell it, go fill out my kid's lunch form.
Yeah.
Maybe have to be a little bit more precise. I hit enter, and it can go do that. And can it submit? The idea is that this is taking that action and then even going further to really take the action.
Yeah, and I'll do you one better on the launch dates. We've already launched some of this stuff. We have a desktop app on Mac and Windows. You can download it. So rather than being in a browser tab, you can use this desktop app, and being in a desktop app, you can do a little bit more. You can like see the ChatGPT, with your permission, of course, can see the whole screen, can see the apps that you're using and what you're doing with them. And we ask, you have to give your explicit permission before it can look at any particular window. But it can already do things like look at, if you're writing code or you're in a terminal, maybe you got some compiler error and you're like, I don't know what this is. You can just say, look at this app, and what do I do? How do I fix it? And it can read what's on the screen and can say, oh, well, you sort of save yourself a copy and a paste back and forth. And in the near future, you can imagine it's just going to say, oh yeah, here, let me just fix that for you. Right? So we're already doing that in the desktop app, and then it's now about bringing this more broadly. But I mean,
this year.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you'll start to see this stuff in Q1 and a steady drumbeat. Wow. And a lot of this is we want to do this in a way that gives people control, right? Models are not perfect. They're not going to be perfect in Q1 or in Q2. They're still going to make mistakes. And as they're off doing things for you in the real world, mistakes can actually take on, they can have more gravity than if it like gives you a wrong answer to a question that you ask ChatGPT. And so a bunch of what we're working on is how do we make sure that we sort of understand what's reversible and what's not, and allow you to control any actions that it's actually going to take. So maybe it fills in the form for you and then says, hey, look, I finished. Why don't you hit submit? Maybe in some cases you trust it because you've done it a few times and you're comfortable with it hitting submit. But if you asked it to go, order something for you on Amazon, you don't want it to hit submit. You want it to go fill up the cart, and then you come back. And so teaching the model sort of where are these checkpoints where you're not supposed to act, just get it ready and let the person make the final call. And that's going to be a sort of a barrier that I imagine, or that boundary will probably shift over time as the models get better and as we learn more about them and people come to trust them, but we want to give people control.
It's really sort of a work towards trust. It's
Yeah.
like a version of AI trust falls.
AI trust falls, that's great.
I'm going to ask one more product, or two more products, and
Okay.
then we're going to get into some other things.
How am I doing at giving you exact dates?
What do you guys think? We're doing good. I think we're okay. We're going to keep this up.
I gave you quarters.
You gave me quarters. Quarters are good.
And it was this
we
quarter,
actually
and
got
we're already in
months.
this quarter, so
We got months on O3,
Yeah.
so our O3 mini. You guys had promised an opt-out of training tool for creators. What about that?
that one we are still working on, and we'll have more to say when we have more to say.
Q2?
We'll see.
Q1? We'll see. Okay. Humanoid robots?
Not this year.
Not this year. Okay, well, we got a year there. That's great. Next year?
We'll see. I think that's honestly that will be the next big thing, whether it's us or anybody else. I think first AI, the most natural place for AI to really have major impact for all of us and how we use our time is in the digital realm, because these things are sort of digitally native, and it's the most natural place. But you start developing things like multimodality, the ability to speak, the ability to see, and start to understand the real world, and robotics is clearly the next thing. And so I think, again, whether it's us or somebody else, it's probably a couple years behind the current sort of revolution that we're going through. And I think this really will be a huge year for AI and for how it affects and improves all of our lives. My guess is robotics is another 2 or 3 years beyond that. But
you guys are working on it too, right? You just restarted part of the research lab around robotics.
Yeah, we're starting to think about it. So, thinking a small team sort of dabbling to try and understand, is this really something is this an area where we can make a big impact? We have first party products, right? We have ChatGPT, et cetera. We also offer a developer product, and we've got, 300 plus million users using ChatGPT every week. We've also got 3 million developers on the API building all sorts of things. And no matter how much we try and do ourselves with our own first party products, we're only ever going to do, the smallest fraction of everything that AI can impact in the world, which is why we care so much about having a great developer program. So again, whether we go there or not, we want to make sure that all the other companies that are doing amazing things in robotics also have access to our models.
I want to ask about partnerships. OpenAI has sort of been, if you will, the Switzerland of AI partnerships, right? You've got Apple, you've got Microsoft, a number of different tech companies where you guys have partnered. But it feels like some of that neutrality could only last so long. How are you thinking about, in your role as a product and launching products, how you work with these partners? And specifically, are you continuing down the road with working with Apple? I mean, Microsoft obviously also involved in the new Stargate project. How are you thinking about these?
Yeah, from a product perspective, I want ChatGPT to be wherever you are, and I want it to be a tap away at all times. So if you have to go on your phone and go find the app and get fine, that's how most apps work. You'll do it. But if we can make it a tap away, because you can long press on a button on the side of your iPhone and have instant access to ChatGPT, even better, right? You'll use it more. It'll be quicker. I mean, you lower the threshold for what is worth asking ChatGPT, and it can help you more. And so that's a big part of our deal with Apple, which we're super excited about. Apple Intelligence is very early and still not even fully rolled out, I think, in most countries. But the idea that you can just long press and have instant access to ChatGPT on every iPhone in the world, that's awesome. It's also why during the 12 days we launched 1-800-ChatGPT. I know a lot of you raised your hands that you use ChatGPT. How many people have used 1-800-ChatGPT? Heard of it? A little bit? Yeah, see, much less. So the idea there was, again, how can we make this just easier for everybody to access? So we own the number 1-800-ChatGPT. I think it's 1-800-242-8478. You can go put it in your contacts and then WhatsApp with it. And you can ask it whatever you want, just like you were inside ChatGPT. It can't give you as rich of responses because you're inside WhatsApp, but it can still do some pretty cool things. And suddenly anybody who has WhatsApp, 3 billion plus people all over the world, and every country where they can serve it, can access ChatGPT completely for free. So that's a big part of our mission. It's not just about developing AGI. It's about bringing it to people in a way that benefits their lives. We do that through our API. That's why we're so proud to have 3 million developers building awesome stuff with our APIs. But we also want to bring it to people in our first party products, and building it inside of an app for free that you probably are all using 100 times a day is one more way, like with Apple, that we're doing this.
I want to ask about money. So Sam Altman tweeted a few weeks ago that OpenAI is losing money on the $200 a month pro plan.
By the way, we love that.
You love losing money. Is that
I love that people. So we launched a pro plan, towards the end of last year, the thing that we were seeing was we offer ChatGPT for free, right? You don't even need to log in. You can just come to the website. You have no account with us and just start using it. If you do log in, your rate limits get a little bit higher, but you can use it for free. And then you can also get a plus plan. You can pay us $20 a month. You get access to more features. You get access to some of our better models, et cetera. What we were seeing was that people were still running into limits. They want to use far more than $20 worth of AI and compute in a month, because it was that valuable to them. And so we wanted to find an outlet where we could basically offer unlimited ChatGPT. Now, unlimited has an asterisk. It always does. We want to protect against abuse and so on. But we decided to put this at $200 a month which is, I'm not sure there are many consumer plans that cost that, because we felt like we had a bunch of people who were were getting so much value out of ChatGPT that we wanted to make it so they could, basically use it as much as they possibly could. And that's why I'm excited that there are people that are using this so much that they're actually using more than $200 worth of compute every month. And look, we're early in this thing. We're not stupid. We couldn't run a business forever like that. But you remember what I said about costs coming down rapidly, right? I mean, everything that we do, we believe that costs are going to continue to come down, and our general MO is to try and offer more AI. So if you look at the trend over the last 6 to 12 months, we cut costs, we raise rate limits, we offer more for free, we put more into our plus plans, and we're going to put more into the pro plan over time. So it's just, we're in this crazy world where costs are coming down rapidly, even as models are getting smarter. We want to put more AI in the hands of people because we think it is very net positive for the world. And so we got people that are using that much of a pro plan. It's amazing.
So we've talked a lot about the AI, but I want to talk a little bit about and the products and the AI products you're making, but I want to talk about the people of OpenAI. Yeah. This has been a tumultuous 2 years, but you'd really just come into it. You came in June. You'd previously worked at Meta, Twitter. You worked at those companies during times of intense pressure when you were building products for the masses and trying to figure out how to make money on them. And I even heard you say yesterday, at Axios, people come and go in this industry, but it feels like right now it's really tumultuous. How are you thinking about that, and how are you steering your team to stay at OpenAI and build with you?
Yeah, the funny thing about companies in these sort of hyper growth stages, because I felt this at Twitter in the early days and then at Instagram, is sometimes the things that the press reports on, no offense, are the thing. Internally they don't sort of rile the company up in the same way. Internally they're less of a big deal, and then you get all these articles out externally. And then sometimes, it's the opposite. The stuff that is actually a bigger deal doesn't always get reported on.
And you should leak that to
us. Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Oh.
If you ever need, know where to go.
So that's what I've been doing wrong all these years.
Yes,
okay, got it.
But continue.
Good to know. Anyways, I have yet to be. I've been fortunate to be at a handful of hyper-growth companies. I've yet to be at one where you don't have some of the folks that were there in the super early days that played a huge role in creating, what the company has become, going man, I joined this when it was 20 people, and now it's 200 or 2,000. It's a little bit different, and I'm ready for a different ride. So I think it's totally fine. I think that our job is to honor them and thank them for the work that they've done, and also be hiring the most amazing people in the world to continue building towards the mission. And that's what we do every day.
But there has been a lot of pushback, both internally and externally, to OpenAI going from a nonprofit research lab to a for-profit. And your team is really at the heart of that. You're making these new products for-profit, not yet on the $200 plan, but soon, sounds like. How do you, again, I have to imagine there's a push and pull on your teams about that.
Not really. This is one of those issues, actually, that is much more externally discussed than no one's gnashing their teeth internally about this. because the story is really straightforward. Sam has said this a bunch of times. OpenAI started out as a nonprofit. The idea was to build AGI as sort of a small group of people, and at a time, by the way, when no one believed that this was ever possible. So there's a bunch of crazy people trying to build AGI, and everyone was like, okay, fine, you guys go do whatever you're going to do. And then as they actually started to make breakthroughs, GPT-1, GPT-2, it was like very clear that you were going to need a lot of money, that it was going to require a lot of compute in order to do it, which isn't exactly consonant with a nonprofit model. And so the sort of simplest thing to do to keep the company going at that point, remember, it still wasn't OpenAI in the way that we think of OpenAI today. Back then, it was a tiny little group of people that felt that they saw something that the world didn't yet see. It was like, well, okay, the easiest thing to do is form this for-profit entity as part of the overall company so that it can take funding so that we can continue on to the mission. Now the company's grown. Now clearly we're a much bigger company, and now it feels strange to people that there's this nonprofit that owns a bigger and bigger for-profit. And so the idea is really just let's sort of be honest about where we are and try and do a restructure that, by the way, preserves the nonprofit. It's a really big part of our mission. We think that there is a huge amount of good that we can do around things like healthcare, things like education, and the goal is for the nonprofit to own a meaningful stake of the overall company and to be a meaningful entity that can do a lot of good in the world.
And I think the big fear is about safety, right? And I think now a lot of people are looking to regulation for that. You were in DC this weekend for some of the inauguration stuff. Again, Trump was there last night when you announced this infrastructure. And OpenAI has been pretty vocal about wanting some regulation. What are the things you would like to see in terms of regulation over the next 4 years?
Well, I think so there already is. AI is already regulated whenever it comes into contact with other regulated industries, right? So whenever AI intersects healthcare, AI has to respect healthcare regulations. Whenever AI intersects law, AI has to respect legal regulations and legal rules. And that's the way it should be, by the way. And so there's already a bunch of ways in which AI is regulated in the same way that any product or service or entity that is in those fields is regulated. I think we have to, let's be honest, we are in a race right now. The US and the West broadly need to win this AI race. I do not want to see China win an AI race. I think the world is in a very different place if a country that doesn't share most of our values, that doesn't share democratic values, ends up getting to AI first. So I think we have to look at how we can spur innovation first and foremost, but we're not against regulation. To me, the thing that we should, and I say we as an industry should avoid, is the world where you end up with a patchwork of 50 different regulatory requirements from 50 different states that basically hamstrings every company, not just us, every company in the space from trying to do anything. Because at that point, we will lose, and that is a far worse outcome.
You mentioned those industries. I mean, we have an FDA, we have an FAA. Should we have a FAI, or someone else can come up with the acronym?
Yeah, I don't know is the answer. We have been consistent in saying that we're open to there being regulation. I think we just need regulation that
Sure.
doesn't try or that doesn't accidentally sort of strangle a new industry when it's still in the early phases.
Okay. So yesterday I interviewed Dario from Anthropic, who's in the same seat as you, and he basically said he's thinking 2027 at a point where AI will be better at everything or most things than a human. Is that OpenAI stance? Is that what you're seeing in the labs? And second part of that question, what are you excited about that? And what should we all just, sort of be fearful and go head to the Davos bunker for?
Yeah, it's hard to put a date on it, right? This is research, and that's one thing that is different about working at a place like OpenAI or Anthropic, that relative to every other place I've worked, is we literally have hundreds of people at the company doing research to try and uncover things that humans have never known before. It's literally research, academic style in many ways. And so it's hard to put a timeline on things. At the same time, I mean, I was talking earlier about going from the millionth best coder to the 1,000th best coder to the 175th best coder in 3 to 4 months. Like, we are on a very steep trajectory here. I don't even know if it'll be 2027. I think it could be earlier. And as far as what to, I tend to be, I think the best way to sort of ride this wave is to actually use AI. If you stand apart from it and you read lots of articles, then you could get really worked up and really scared. Or you can actually use it and realize that it's helping you in these ways in your daily life. It's imperfect in these ways still. You get a sense for where it's getting better and where it needs to still be better. And then you're actually participating in the change that's going to happen over the next N years. I think that's the way to do it, because that also leads to, I mean, at the end of the day, who is going to, whether regulate or sort of set societal standards, other things, it's going to be all of us, right? Mm-hmm. And people that are using that sort of define how these things should evolve. And the more people using it, the more people are actually informed, and the better answer that we get to as we go through what I think really will be a lot of change over the next few years.
If we do hit AGI and humans aren't really needed for a lot of this work, what are you going to do with your spare time?
I
hear you run.
I do. I run. I bike. I have 3 crazy kids that are insane at all times. I don't know. I think people have a very innate drive to do something bigger than themselves. I think people need a mission in life, and I don't think that will change pre-AI, post-AI, whatever. So I'm personally not the kind of person who thinks about we're all going to get UBI and just sit back and read books all the time or something. I think people need something bigger that they strive for. And look, all of these changes, you look at any big change that society has gone through over the years, many of them because of technological improvements, there are always lots of people professing doom, prophesying doom ahead of it. Automobiles, radios, TVs, electricity, the printing, people are very adaptable. I don't think any of us would want to go back to the days before any of those inventions. I think we're going to feel the same thing about AI. It's going to change the world. It already is. But I think it will change it for the positive. And I don't think that when we're on the other side of it, we're going to go, I really want to go back to when I had to spend an hour filling out soccer forms for my kids. So I'm very excited about what's to come.
All right, I'm going to ask one last question, which is about humans and the humans you've worked with. You've worked for some pretty distinctive leaders. You've worked for Jack Dorsey at Twitter, Mark Zuckerberg at Meta, and now Sam Altman. I was going to ask you to rank them, but I think that was fair. Who runs the best meeting?
Who runs the best meeting? Oh, man.
Seems like a very human thing, so I thought, we love meetings, humans.
Yeah. So Mark is more structured than Sam is, and more structured than Jack is. Mark will always come in with a hypothesis, which he's always thought deeply about whatever it is. Mark's super ambitious, but always has sort of a path from here to there charted in his mind. And one of the things I loved working with him is he's also always open to feedback. You can say, I think you're wrong, and here's why. But you better be ready for the debate that's coming on the other end of it, because he has a reason why he thinks what he does. And you can convince him that you're right and he's wrong, but it takes you having a really well-developed opinion yourself. Sam is more of a visionary. Sam, I think, is the best person that I've ever seen at, humans in general are bad at exponentials. We're not good at actually extrapolating out the amount of change that comes from being on an exponential curve. Sam is the best person I've ever seen at actually doing that and saying, okay, if this is really exponential, then in 3 years, it's not going to be this linear trend that is kind of what we as humans always do. It's actually going to be here. And that's why we're going to, build a company that spends $500 billion building AI infrastructure. It's because Sam is better at writing exponentials than the rest of us and sees these kinds of outcomes and is actually doing what we need to do to be ready for it.